Good morning everyone and welcome to NTU Open House 2022. I am Soi Chi Chong, a Year 2 student from NTU's University Scholars program majoring in Aerospace Engineering. You're joining us today for a live panel session with two of our NTU-USP core faculty, Dr. Rebecca Nichols from the School of Social Sciences and Dr. Melvin Chen from the School of Humanities. Now, before we get on with the segment, you might want to open another tab on your browser and go to our Slido event code 904892. That's 904892. You can send us any questions that you might have during this live session, and we will address them as much as possible along the way. Moving along, let's start with a short introductory video of NTUUSP, shall we?
The NTU University Scholars Program is a vibrant and unique program, specially designed to offer outstanding students like you the opportunity to explore realms that complement your major areas of study at your respective school. Our program aims to develop independent thinkers, nurture empathetic leaders, and foster an engaged community. We do this through a highly interdisciplinary academic program, exciting co-curricular activities, and immersive cultural experiences in Singapore and overseas.
NTU-USP is like family to me. It's been a supportive community for me to grow, try new things, expand my worldview, and most importantly, make friends. There are countless opportunities for us to explore and pursue the various passions we have in areas like the arts or social services. Learning is fun and enjoyable as we are encouraged to consider different views and formulate our own perspectives in the process. It's been a unique learning experience that I would have never been able to experience otherwise.
The Travel Overseas Program for Scholars, or TOPS, is a credit-bearing module that offers first-year students the opportunity to explore issues in a region beyond Singapore's borders while also honing interdisciplinary research skills. But it's actually so much more than just a module. Students describe the experience as one that sparks their curiosities, that nudges them outside of their comfort zones, that highlights the value of teamwork, and that shapes their worldviews such that they're better able to contend with, but also help mitigate the challenges of a globalized world.
Scholars have a unique opportunity to learn in small seminar settings with dedicated USP faculty. Our modules, which are exclusive to USP Scholars, showcase the breadth of knowledge at NTU and beyond. Our students have had the chance to travel to Venice, Italy to study the Maritime Silk Road, to go to Chiang Mai, Thailand to practice astronomy, and to learn right here in Singapore about such fascinating topics as the relationship between creativity and artificial intelligence.
In the NTUUSP Club, we have a committee that spearheads various initiatives that both enrich and value adds the lives of our USP scholars while fostering a sense of belonging to the NTUUSP family. There were also many opportunities for me to hone my leadership skills, from the arts to career-focused events, from current affairs to social service. The diversity we enjoy is something that I will not take for granted.
Being part of NTUUSP is really a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I'll describe NTUUSP as a safe space where you can explore and pursue your current interests and even develop new ones. So come in with an open mind and be willing to take advantage of the wide range of opportunities that NTUUSP has to offer.
We welcome you to be part of our unique NTUUSP community. It will change you.
Well, that video certainly reminds me of my own journey through NTUUSP. Now, I'll pass the time on to Dr. Becky to kickstart our session.
Thanks so much, Chi Chung. Welcome to everyone joining us today. We're so happy to see you. Again, my name is Dr. Rebecca Nichols. I am a core lecturer for the NTUUSP and also housed in the psychology program here at NTU. I will be giving a broad introduction to the NTUUSP today. I will talk about our broad-based approach to holistic learning, and I'll also talk about the myriad of global opportunities we have in the program, and then I'll be passing to my wonderful colleague, Dr. Melvin Chen, who will be talking about our very unique and tight-knit community, as well as some of our scholarship highlights as well. So just to introduce the program to you, what is the NTUUSP? We are one of 4 Premier Scholars programs here at NTU, which are programs for high-achieving students who are interested in further developing their potential. We have at NTU the Renaissance Engineering Program, predominantly for engineers. We have the CN Young Scholars Program, which is of interest to students particularly interested in the physical or biological sciences, as well as technological innovation. We also have the NIE Teacher Scholars Program for our students over at NIE, and the NTU University Scholars Program, which is us. We are really very much a multidisciplinary, oftentimes interdisciplinary, sometimes transdisciplinary program that complements NTU's core disciplines. So if you come into engineering, for example, you have the same depth of training in your major that any other student would have at NTU, but we also have a unique program within the NTUUSP, and we have really 4 main objectives for our program. We hope to develop you as independent thinkers. The nature of work and just contending with the challenges of the world is becoming increasingly complex, and so we want you more than well equipped to deal with those challenges, both while you're in university, but certainly by the time you leave. We want to nurture our students as empathetic leaders. We want to absolutely foster an engaged community, both within the NTUUSP, but also within NTU and the larger community as well. And we certainly encourage global citizenship. The challenges of the world are also increasingly globalized, and therefore we want you to have a solid amount of exposure to areas beyond Singapore's borders, so that again, you're better able to contend with the challenges that we face as a globalized world, but also so that we have a greater understanding of our neighbors, and we're able to work and socialize with our friends outside of Singapore as well. Now, many of you, of course, are quite interested in scholarships, and I won't go through everyone here, but this is just a broad list of both our internal scholarships and external scholarships to NTU. We bring this up because many of our students are funded through the NTUUSP Scholarship, the basis of which is the Nanyang Scholarship, sort of the largest scholarship at NTU. But also you may hold, or eventually may hold, a number of external scholarships as well. We do have students come into the NTUUSP with external scholarships, and we just want to inform you that whatever the NTUUSP scholarship would have in addition to your external scholarship, we would certainly top up for you. So there's no cost to you if you come in with your own scholarship from elsewhere outside of NTU. And you can take a look at the link here for all of the scholarships that are associated with NTU. Now, again, if you were to come into the NTU-USP, you would come into and graduate with a degree in your home major or majors, but also you would come into the NTU-USP. So this means that you could come in as a student from the Nanyang Business School, perhaps the College of Science, perhaps the Colleges of Humanities, Arts, and Social Sciences, or COHAS, or the College of Engineering. Now, you might ask, Prof. Becky, what does this mean that I come into my own major, but also I come into the NTU-USP? Does this mean that I have to take on an additional program and I won't graduate for 5 or 6 years? Absolutely, that's not the case, and that's why we like to say that you can have your cake and eat it too. So this is just a breakdown of what academic units may look like for a student who is coming into the psychology major, perhaps with Nanyang Scholarship, but not the NTU-USP. That's on the left side here. And on the right side, we have the depiction of the academic unit breakdown for a student who would come into psychology major, but also come into the NTU-USP. There are a few things I'd like to point out here for you. One is that you can see that the core and elective majors for the psychology major, which again is just an example here, does not change. We absolutely do not take anything away from your home major. And again, you would graduate with the same degree that any psychology major would have at NTU. You can see here that the interdisciplinary and collaborative core electives or core required modules, some of them will be displaced with NTU-USP core and elective modules. And so you can see here for a psychology major, the number of academic units is exactly the same. Now, for some majors, there may be a difference of a few academic units, but this is not something that will be salient to you over the course of your 3 or 4 years with the NTU-USP. You can see also here our 4 core courses, which students take all in their first year. They include writing and reasoning, ethics, living well, and a very special module, although I'm biased because I coordinate the module, called Fieldwork and Documentation, which is also known as the Travel Overseas Program for Scholars. And then depending on your program, whether the length of your program is 3 years or 4 years, you would take either 2 or 4 electives from our large body of elective modules. We have 2 categories here. The electives would either come from the Arts, Humanities, and Culture bucket, or they would come from the Science, Technology, and Society bucket. Again, these are modules that are all very interdisciplinary. They are meant to be accessible to students from all different majors, no matter which college you come from. They are the type of modules that I wish I had as an undergraduate when I was at university. They are so timely, so relevant, deeply engaging. Our faculty who teach these electives have a real passion for the subject matter that they teach. And so again, I wish that I could go back in time and take these modules myself. You can take a look at the modules at our NTU-USP website as well. Okay, so again, you will have remembered that part of our core philosophy is ensuring that our students have exposure overseas, not just because it's fun, of course, but because we really see this as quite important and integral to your training here as an NTU-USP scholar. So in year 1, you would enroll in fieldwork and documentation, which includes a 1-week trip overseas. Then perhaps you would travel in year 2, year 3, or year 4, either with various leadership symposia or with our study abroad or overseas exchange program, the latter of which is under the larger NTU umbrella. Here are just a few beautiful pictures, which I'm sure take all 3 of us back to some of the trips that we have had along the way. You see a photo here in the top left-hand corner from our Travel Overseas Program for Scholars from Ilan County, Taiwan, for example. We also have photos featured here from Laos and from some of our students' study abroad and overseas programs as well. So again, just briefly, the fieldwork and documentation module and associated trip is a trip that all scholars complete in year 1. This is a credit-bearing module, so our students go abroad to conduct research to learn about the livelihoods and community and societal challenges that the people face in a location outside of Singapore. So our students are not visiting as a tourist, but rather as a budding social scientist. And you have a lot of attention and support, both from teaching faculty, but additional faculty mentors who come along with us as well, even senior students who come back as group mentors. We're fortunate to have Chi Chung as a group mentor for this year's TOPS program. We also have our own NTU-USP Study Abroad program. So again, if you're interested in going on exchange under the larger NTU umbrella, we have over 350 partner universities, so you can really take your pick. But we're so fortunate here in the NTU-USP that we have partnered with 7 universities who recognize the potential of our scholars and allow our scholars not to come on exchange, one-to-one exchange, but come to study abroad for a semester and clear a number of modules that then count toward their degree program here at NTU. So these include universities listed here in Australia, in Europe and the UK, and also the US. You might recognize UPenn here as an Ivy League school in the US. So that's really it from me. I will now pass to my wonderful colleague, Dr. Melvin Chen, who will talk about our very unique community and also our scholarship opportunities as well.
Yes, thanks so much, Becky. Thanks, Chi Chung, for the excellent moderation thus far. Thanks, Becky, for having pretty much covered the lion's share of the slides. So it remains for me to bring up the rear, and our hope, as a collective, in fact, our expectation is to convince you by the end of this talk that you can indeed have your cake and eat it. So I'll try my level best. I mean, technically speaking, the die is a bit weighted because I'm a philosopher, so I'll be using my persuasive abilities as best as I can. And I think Chi Chung and Becky will agree with me when I say that NTU is affectionately known as Pulau NTU. It may not be the most accessible part of Singapore, and you may take a bit of time to travel to campus, especially if you are living in the slightly more far-flung parts of the country. The following will therefore be a welcome piece of news. You find that hall accommodation is guaranteed, though not compulsory, for the entire study program at NTU, and our NTU-USP scholars will be housed at the Crescent and Pioneer, or as they are collectively known, the Crespian halls, especially for the first year. I say this with no small amount of envy, given that I am currently a hall fellow or faculty in residence at Hall 8. You find that Crespian halls are probably among the newest and swankiest buildings on campus, and also fully equipped with state-of-the-art facilities. And Chi Chung will be able to provide a first-hand account during the Q&A if you are interested. Next, we have our NTU-USP Student Club. So this is entirely student-led and student-run. Right? The intention is to enhance student experience, and by and large, faculty members and my administrative colleagues, we do give a bit of a free rein with minimal supervision, and we do find that the initiatives tend to be more than we can keep up with. As you can see, within the speech bubble, right, there's a whole range of portfolios, and within each of these portfolios, namely academic and general affairs, arts, culture and social affairs, alumni, career and outreach, publicity and public relations, and social services project, we've got a plethora of roles that normally will be quite quickly filled up by our scholars. Among the activities that you can expect being rolled out by the student club, we have our yearly and always much anticipated stage production, right? Student-led, student-run. We've got community service projects that are initiated by our NTU-USP scholars. We've got our alumni sharing sessions, and of course the workshops that are organized by our students as well. Okay, these are the scholarship highlights, right? So you find a fair bit of it has to do with various sorts of financial benefits. The terms are highly generous. You've also got a professional development component among the scholarship highlights. I do not profess to be, nor do I wish to be a snake oil merchant. I'm a philosopher, so I tend to incline toward the unvarnished truth. What I will say is, and I think my colleague Becky alluded to this, if you are looking for one of a better characterization of financial handout, then you probably just want to go for the scholarship without the program. The key motivation behind the financial benefits for our program is we wish to set the hearts and minds of our students at ease, right, so they can concentrate on their studies and fully submit to the rigors of our program.
And I think we have probably made the case as best as can be done. So we hope that you will take the first step of the journey with us. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, Dr. Becky and Dr. Melvin, for the delightful sharing. While you were speaking, something that really stood out to me was how we have opportunities within NTU-USP to do activities beyond the scope of what our majors typically offer. So, joining NTU as an engineering student, I wouldn't have expected to involve myself in, for example, the performing arts. But a year later, I found myself directing our annual drama production, affectionately titled US Presents. So to me, this is just a chance to really go beyond my comfort zone and expand my horizons beyond what I would otherwise not be able to achieve. So I can actually see some questions piling up from our viewers at home. So let's take some time to address the questions that we have now. Our first question for today is, what kind of commitments are needed for our scholarship program? Prof. Becky, would you like to take this question?
Sure. So as you've seen in our slides, we have a curriculum requirement, of course, and we have a lot of programming that is involved with the NTU-USP as well. As far as the requirements for our program, of course, you must clear your modules that are required. You must maintain a minimum GPA level, but typically students haven't had an issue to meet this GPA. Usually if a student has fallen through, then something has happened in their lives, and we provide support to the students as well. So generally our students do very well in the program. There's nothing really to worry about with that. However, I will say that while perhaps not a firm requirement, you've also heard a bit now about the really tight-knit sense of community that we have in the program. And so it's highly encouraged that you are actively participating in our program, whether it's through the student club, whether it's through activities like coming back as a senior student for TOPS. And we find that our students are really looking for those opportunities and looking to engage in that way as well.
Perhaps to elaborate on the point about our subcommittee activities. So year one freshmen who will be joining NTU-USP will be expected to join at least one of our sub-portfolios, either the academic general affairs or social services projects, like we mentioned earlier. So yeah, because we are such a small, tight-knit community, everyone feels really involved. So it's not so much a commitment, rather an opportunity to get involved with everybody else. Right, so let's take our second question for today. How has COVID-19 affected the overseas opportunities for students?
Well, perhaps I'll take that question, Chi Chong and Becky. So you find in the main, we've of course had to navigate around this particular obstacle, but this is an obstacle that is not unique to us, but is an obstacle that the entire world is facing. We have been rather creative on that front, I must confess, and Becky can share her first-hand experience of having organized a field trip to the offshore islands of Singapore. So technically speaking, we still had an overseas fieldwork and documentation component. In fact, we are right on the cusp of our next field trip to Malaysia. I will also hasten to add that generally we want to make sure as best as we can that while we are embarking on these overseas trips and opportunities, that we do want to look out for the health and safety of our students as well. So that's our topmost priority.
Yes, absolutely. I'll just add on that, yes, we have not diminished the global spirit of our program, even in the face of the pandemic. By the time you come into NTU, hopefully we'll be over the hump and things will be much better. But for example, as Prof. Melvin mentioned, we are gearing up to travel to Malaysia. We have resumed our overseas programs in terms of exchange and study abroad. So we're looking forward to getting back to a new normal, whatever that looks like, but with a hefty degree of travel involved.
Right, thanks Dr. Becky and Dr. Melvin. So I think in a similar vein, we have a question. Is NTU-USP inclusive of the Nanyang Scholarship and the College Scholarship?
Okay, I suppose a bit of disambiguation may be in order. So you find that the Nanyang Scholarship and the College Scholarship, they give you the financial benefits but sans or without the program. You find that the financial benefits are commensurate, right, with the benefits on offer with the University Scholars program. But in addition, there will be the programmatic requirements that our NTU-USP scholars won't have to go through.
Right, thanks Dr. Melvin. Our next question is, if I don't have CCA activities but I participated extensively outside of school, would that be taken in consideration when applying for NTU-USP?
Sure, maybe I will take that one. Absolutely. We have many candidates who are involved in a variety of activities, whether they are CCAs from their home schools, JCs or polys, or involved in volunteering activities, for example. We have students who, for example, have started their own businesses, who are engaged in community support activities. Certainly, we look at your holistic body of work and contributions and activities, as well as just your interests. We are interested in supporting you and helping to develop your own passions. So absolutely not. How we evaluate your application is not limited to just your academic credentials and your CCAs, but also the wealth of other activities that you're involved in as well.
Well, in a similar vein, we have another question for Dr. Becky. What is the admissions process like for NTU-USP? Rather, as you have elaborated, how are students assessed in the application process?
Okay, great question. So when you apply to NTU, there will be a checkbox for you to indicate your interest in the NTU-USP, and that is the very first step. So again, if we look like a program that is exciting and would be enriching and help to fulfill your objectives for what you have at university, please do not forget to check that box when you apply to NTU. After that, we follow up with you. So there is a short essay to write as part of our application, maximum 500 words, nothing too stressful, something you can finish in an afternoon. We take a look at this essay along with your whole application, and then shortlisted candidates are invited for an interview. We generally, and I feel safe to speak on behalf of all faculty here, we are not interested in putting you through the ringer for the interview process. We know that you are not interested in that as well. It's really an opportunity for us to get to know you and to get to understand your interest in the NTU-USP, because ultimately we want our program to be a good fit for you at the end of the day.
Thanks, Dr. Becky. So our next question for today is, as professors teaching the NTU-USP Scholars, how would you describe the scholars?
I would say thanks for the question, whoever's raised it, and thanks Chi-Chung for having picked the question. I would say that it's with immeasurable joy and pride that the faculty members at NTU-USP show up each evening for our seminars, because you find that the students they tend to be naturally inquisitive. They enjoy challenges. They enjoy rising to various intellectual challenges that we pose. They are also intellectually humble, extremely grounded. They want to learn more, and they are always willing to just find out from their peers who may not have the same majors as them, about the other branches of the tree of knowledge. So I would say absolutely no complaints from my end. If you are someone who feels that you are very inclined toward an interdisciplinary liberal arts type ethos and outlook, then I would say the NTU-USP is probably the option for you.
I'll just add one thing, which is that Prof. Melvin took the words exactly out of my mouth. I feel exactly the same way. We find our students inspiring to us, even as faculty. Their sense of community is something also that really stands out to us, because in a community of scholars, it can be very easy to have students want to climb over each other in their bids for success. We are very fortunate that our students are supportive of one another. We see it every day. We see it in our own small class sizes. We see our students, out and about in the community. We see our students helping each other, supporting them to meet their goals. So it's really, really, truly, I say this honestly, it's a fantastic program to be a part of, and I'm really fortunate to be a faculty member here.
Thanks very much for the votes of confidence, profs. So we've recently spoken about how the travel overseas program for scholars has been affected by the pandemic. I think we have a similar question. How are exchange programs, specifically overseas exchange programs, being affected by the pandemic? Are they still available for students?
Yes, so we have resumed our overseas exchange programs at NTU and our study abroad program within the NTU-USP. So we have students on exchange as we speak in this moment. Again, there certainly was a period of time where we were not able to have our students go abroad, but certainly by the time you would come into NTU-USP, we would expect, or cross our fingers, hopefully, that everything would be fine and that you would have the opportunity to study abroad when the time comes also for you.
Thanks, Dr. Becky. We have one more question from the audience. what are you looking for so that, what are we looking for so that NTU-USP candidates will be able to prep themselves to get into our program?
Yes, perhaps I'll take that question. So you find in terms of how you go about preparing for the interviews, I think you would pay us due courtesy if you do a bit of web-based research, find out more about our program using the website, find out a bit more about the various courses and modules that we offer, the liberal arts ethos, our interdisciplinary outlook. Beyond that, I think prepping has the sense of looking for some 10-year series analog of questions or test bank, and thereafter providing package responses. In fact, that's something I'll probably personally counsel against. Right, insofar that the interview process is there because we want to help you and also help ourselves determine the degree of fit as best and as accurately as we can. Right, so at the admissions, at the interview round, just show up, be yourself, be spontaneous, armed with a bit of background knowledge about our program, and then we'll see how things go from there.
I think a similar question to what you just talked about, Dr. Melvin, is it very competitive to get into our program?
Becky,
oh, sure. Happy
yes.
to take that one.
Yes.
Pardon me. We have a cohort every year of around 50 students, which might seem unimaginably small, and it may feel like the program therefore is extremely competitive and oh my gosh, should I even apply? Certainly please continue to check our interest, because we have a very unique design to our program that may not suit every student at NTU. So for example, a student may really want to come into let's say a business program, and they're predominantly interested in the breadth of their business training, and that's really what they want to give their time and energy to during their time at NTU. There are other students, again, who may be really looking for that breadth of experience, looking for that T, this is very much the catchphrase now, the T-shaped training of having depth but also having breadth to be able to prepare for the crazy world out there. And so if our opportunities sound like something that will suit your objectives, then absolutely, we would love to hear from you, to meet with you, and to see if we would be a great program for you, and of course also you for us as well.
Yes, perhaps a quick addendum. So my colleague Becky has covered that question excellently. What I'll say is, in the main, do bear in mind that fortune favors the brave as well. So you may be a bit concerned about your GPA, but rest assured that the sort of assessment that we conduct is very holistic in nature. So the GPA would be but one of the various conditions that we will look for when we try to determine whether or not you are a good fit for our program. I should also hasten to add that given our very non-traditional or non-standard assessment protocols, that there have been at least some instances, I believe, where certain profiles just stand out, right, because there's something that we've read in the CV, and eventually these students go on to take on starring roles within our programs. So indeed, right, fortune favors the brave, and do not hesitate to apply if you find something from what we have said about our program speaks to you.
Another question from the audience today is, how heavily subsidized is our study abroad program?
Our study abroad program is actually quite heavily subsidized, so we do offer support for your tuition fee, also accommodation. You have a $5,000 travel grant and a living allowance top-up as well. Now, if you want to take side trips or do a lot of shopping or things like that, unfortunately, NTU-USP will not be supporting those activities. We support them in theory, but not financially, so that is up to you. But again, as Prof. Melvin mentioned, we want you to be at ease that when you travel abroad, you don't have to worry about basic subsistence while you're there, and so the study abroad program is quite heavily funded for you.
Right, thanks Dr. Becky. Another question we have is, joining NTU-USP, is the academic burden much more than if I didn't join?
I suppose for this particular question, since the perspectives of the faculty may not be the most representative, Teachong, perhaps you could share a bit more about your personal experience?
Sure. So I think, as the profs have mentioned just now, the number of academic units you will take with or without NTU-USP are about the same. So for me, I take about 6 more AUs as an engineering student with USP, but these 6 units are very manageable. However, the core modules that we take, for example, living well, ethics, writing and reasoning, because these are interdisciplinary modules and with a high academic standard to it, they are more rigorous than the other standard modules that I take within my engineering major. But I think it's definitely well worth it because of just how valuable it is to me as an interdisciplinary critical thinker and someone who wants to go beyond just the ordinary boundaries of an engineering degree. Right, another question that we have from the floor is, can NTU-USP scholars hold concurrent scholarships with external organizations, for example, A-STAR or the Public Service Commission?
Yes, I'll take this one. So absolutely, you can come into the NTU-USP with an external scholarship in tow. Again, anything that the NTU-USP would provide to you as part of our scholarship package that you wouldn't have as part of your external scholarship, we would make sure to top up so that you are not at a loss of any kind, or you're not benefiting as much as any other student in the NTU-USP program.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Becky. So one more question that we have is, how is NTU-USP different from our other Premier Scholars programs in NTU, which I already mentioned, for example, REP or the NIE scholarship program?
Yes, so we have a whole slew of Premier Scholars programs, so that is the general umbrella. You find that the CN Young scholars, they tend to hail from the STEM disciplines. In fact, that's not unique to them. We do have some STEM scholars within the NTU-USP program as well, but they are STEM only. You have as well the Renaissance Engineering program. So these tend to be students who are from the engineering disciplines, but with some kind of a technopreneurial bent. We also have the NTU the MOE Teaching Scholars program. So these are for students who are going to enter the education sector at some point. With respect to how the University Scholars program, right, is set apart from these other programs, you find, for instance, that CN Young also is undergirded by a liberal arts ethos, but I think the NTU-USP takes it a step further, right? Insofar that we are in principle discipline agnostic. I mean, of course, there'll be some disciplines due to the nature of the beast that will not fit within our program. For example, medicine, architecture, right? These are all quite heavy-duty disciplines, but beyond that, we welcome, right, students from various folds, and we do think it enriches the overall pedagogical experience as well.
Thanks, Dr. Melvin. So another question we have about hall life. Am I guaranteed hall stay for the entire tenure of my education in NTU-USP?
I'll take this one. So yes, you are guaranteed hall stay for your entire 3 or 4 years, depending on the length of your program here at NTU. This is not required of you, but we do find that most of our NTU-USP students do stay at least their first year, and we have many who stay throughout their entire tenure at NTU as well.
Well, it looks like we're running out of time today, so let's take our last question from the floor. To join NTU-USP, which is very niche, will we be able to mix around with students from around the world?
The answer is a resounding yes. In fact, it will be remiss of us not to provide you with opportunities to mix with students from around the world, given that that's quite an intrinsic part of a liberal arts ethos, right? We want to push in favor of cosmopolitanism, in favor of students experiencing, understanding a variety of perspectives. So to give you a sense of what I might be referring to, you'll find that we do have various regional youth dialogues that we host, and this allows students to meet up with other students, right? They are peers from generally either the Southeast Asian region or the Greater Asian region. Right. In addition, of course, if you do take up the various overseas exchange opportunities, then there you get yet another chance, right, to meet students who are not from this part of the world. In your first year, if you're really champing at the bit and you do want to meet students overseas, we do have our fieldwork and documentation module, and normally we will try as best as we can to arrange for liaison or meeting sessions, right, with students who may be located in those areas where we go for our field trips.
My apologies to the profs and to the audience. I misspoke earlier. We still have plenty of time to take more questions, so please do keep them coming. So, sorry, our next question is, during the interview, will I be made to take any written tests?
Happy to take this one. Absolutely not. That is not the ethos of our interview process. We really just aim to have a discussion so that, again, we can get to know you and you can certainly get to know us as well. So we make sure to leave time for you to ask any questions, anything that we can clarify about the program, or even if we can give our impressions of what it's like to be in the NTU-USP, we're happy to do that. Chi-Chung, do you want to comment on your interview experience way back when?
Oh, wow. That brings me back. I think it's almost 4 years ago by now.
Wow.
Yeah, because I applied before National Service rather than after. I distinctly recall I was speaking about writing poetry, something about writing poetry and how it was a very mechanical process for me. And I likened the artistic side of poetry to a very technical, programming-like way of thinking. Yeah, and I think for me, that interview was really interesting because no other opportunity had ever been given to me to speak about writing in such a personal manner. So yeah, even looking beyond the admissions process, I think the interview was just a delightful experience.
Oh, great. Not too stressful. Great to hear. Prof.
Yeah.
Melvin, any comments on the interview process from your perspective?
Yeah, I think we generally try to keep it relatively laid back and informal because we do want to use the interview as an opportunity to learn a bit more about the student, not just someone who's submitting a set of grades for consideration, a CV as well, but also the person as an individual. Right, so you find that here we are trying to develop a community not just of learning but also living together. So you find many of our students outside of the confines of the classroom hours, they tend to head off for dinner, and I think Chi Chong will happily corroborate, and over dinner, for example, they may start engaging in very robust, healthy but also polite debates, right, about various issues, topics that may have been introduced in the class itself.
Right, thank you, Dr. Melvin and Dr. Becky. One more question we have is, does NTU-USP admit international students?
Yes, indeed we do, right? So we do admit a certain number of international students. You find that it normally proceeds by a case by case basis. So what we consider, as I already pointed out, is a very holistic perspective. So we will look at your GPAs. If you feel that you want to make your case as strong as it possibly can be made, do provide us as much information as possible, especially prior to the interview round, because that's what we normally riff off. Right? So the interview panel will get that information, we'll try to engage with you in the conversation on the basis of what you share, and we'll make an all things considered judgment at the end, especially after you submit your essay as well. So yes, please don't forget to submit the essay component as well.
Thanks, Dr. Melvin. Our next question is, how does NTU-USP differ from NUS College, which was previously known as NUS-USP, both being interdisciplinary programs?
Okay, I'll take this one first. The NUS College, I assume this is the College of Arts and Sciences at NUS, the new college. I really do have to say, first of all, that we're really quite lucky in Singapore overall to have a renewed interest in the rigor associated with interdisciplinary learning. I do think that this is not just a focus of the NTU-USP or of NTU, but our Singaporean IHLs overall. So it's really lovely to know that if you were to come to an institution here at home, you would be in good shape, because there is a broad and renewed interest in ensuring that, again, we don't just have that depth of disciplinary training, but we have broadening training as well that allows us to manage the complexities of this crazy world out there. Here in the NTU-USP, in part, our program is different because of the function and structure of coursework, module work here at NTU. Sorry, losing my voice this morning. We do have students come directly into their majors from day one, which means that you start both with coursework in your major, but also coursework in the NTU-USP, clearing those 4 modules first and then taking elective modules later on. So when considering which program you might want to join, you should also look at the broader structures for module work and major work, both outside of the Scholars program that you're interested in, let's say, but also within the individual major itself.
Thanks, Dr. Becky. So one more question we have is, how are the current students handling this program on top of their degree? Well, I think as Prof. Melvin mentioned earlier, since I'm a current NTU-USP student, I might be well addressed to take this question. So as I mentioned earlier, the academic rigor of NTU-USP is definitely a cut above the rest. And that being said, it does take up a lot of time, not just because of the academic rigor, but because of all the subsequent other commitments that NTU-USP scholars usually get into. So for example, in my first year, I was involved in 2 subcommittees, ACSA and AGA. I was involved in the freshman orientation program in the organizing committee. I was involved in the year-end party in the organizing committee, in addition to all the other usual hall activities, all the usual academic parts of life. So I would say that it's definitely something that requires us to have a lot of good time management skills, being able to prioritize our responsibilities well. And while it was definitely challenging, I think it's definitely something that I would appreciate to learn earlier rather than later. Like now that within the NTU, it's still a very comfortable learning environment. There's still room to make mistakes, to grow and to learn. And most importantly, we have the NTUUSP community to support us throughout the whole way, because we're all learning and growing together as a community. So I definitely think no matter the challenges, it's well worth it.
Great,
Right.
thank you, Chi-Chung.
All right, next question that we have is, can I apply to NTUUSP for its program without accepting the scholarship?
I'll take this one. Yes, you absolutely can come into the NTUUSP without scholarship. And we have a related question that has come in for individuals who are interested in taking up our NTUUSP scholarship. Is there a bond of any kind? Absolutely not. Happy to report also that there's no bond tied to the NTUUSP scholarship.
Yeah, I'll just hasten to add that while there is the absence of a legal bond, there'll be the ties that bind beyond the 4 years that our students are in our program. I mean, you find that that there is this sense of the USP that it's more than a program, right? It's really just a way of living, and I think Chi-Chung should be able to concur as well. I mean, a lot of our alumni, they return, to our fold, and they're very happy to organize various workshops. We've just had our most recent alumni sharing session where one of our colleagues, Christina, gave a talk about love and sex to our alumni.
Right, thanks Dr. Melvin and Dr. Becky. I'm afraid that that's all the time that we have for today. Thank you for giving such an in-depth overview of NTUUSP, and I'm sure that our viewers at home have found this to be an informative and comprehensive session. For those of you who would like to find out more, there will be another live session at 2 p.m, a talk show put up by our very own NTUUSPians just for you. Do tune in to check it out. You can also check us out on our social media handles as well, as we're active on both Facebook and Instagram. Stay safe and healthy, and the NTUUSP community looks forward to meeting you. Goodbye!